WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host here for this next hour. Welcome you to our broadcast focus on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We will hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We have Norm MacArthur here. He's our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
All right. And of course, we have our citizen of the 21st century who actually understands this IT world that we live in. He's our engineer, does the live streaming of the program. Willie H. How you doing, Willie?
Welcome, Mr. Hare. Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. You can call us up, 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
So I want to take today's program and start some arguments.
Uh-oh.
You know, sometimes we have to cut it loose and start stuff, right?
Yeah.
My core argument, I was telling Willie this on the way down to the studio today. What troubles me is that there are so many things that are going right in the economy, in the social structure of the United States right now that have been going right, have gotten better. I mean, we went through that pandemic period. You all know that I was crazy like you all were. You know, we were walking to work. You know, we had to completely reconstruct our lives and so on because of the way we had to organize ourselves to deal with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And as a consequence, lots of changes took place in our society. Mm-hmm. But much of that stuff has been worked through. And the Biden administration, whether he's the principal person who made this or that thing happen, or whether he's just the person who was in charge when something happened, under the Biden administration, there have been tremendous development, positive developments in this society.
Right.
You would not know it reading the news and listening to the news media reports.
Right.
You know, I read the stuff that, you know, in the Buffalo News and the New York Times and the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune. And whenever they got something positive to say about Biden, they immediately tell you, but this could happen. This bad thing might occur. This downturn might occur. Now, these downturns never occur. They've been predicting a recession since April of 2022. If a recession was coming, it would have come by now. Has anybody heard a news report where they said, you know, we predicted a recession 15 months ago and it never happened? Have you heard that media report? Of course not. They just moved on. You know, they talked, well, we'll talk about these things in specifics as we go forward. But I'm troubled with the fact that the media in this country has adopted this sort of a worldview that whatever happens that's positive, it's either explainable because of something that had nothing to do with Joe Biden, or it was an accident, you know, of history, and so on, or that there was something that's hanging over that positive thing's head that it's going to turn sour, you know, pretty soon. That's the way the media talks about it. But if you think about when Donald Trump was president, if one person got a job, you hear for the whole week, oh yeah, that one guy got a job. You know, we're doing great work on jobs. Now it could be 300,000 people lost their jobs. That's not Trump's fault. You know, that's Vladimir Putin's fault. You know, it's somebody else's fault. It's that kind of media bias that concerns me. So let me just kind of pick out some specifics, and I'd really like to hear from our radio audience. If I'm off the mark, please tell me. I don't mind. I accept criticism all the time. Norm, you're going to be our balance man. You're a citizen, so I'm going to let you kind of respond to some of these things. But let's take COVID-19.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time in the last 3 years talking about COVID-19. We were giving you reports every 2 or 3 days, how many people got sick, how many people were dying. Do you remember when we were talking about 35,000 people getting sick and they had to shut the country down? Remember that?
Yeah.
That was in April of 2020.
Yes, sir.
So, we went through that period. It actually got to a point where last year we had days when there was something in the area of 250 to 300,000 people getting sick on the same day. But deaths from COVID-19, we were getting deaths of 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 deaths in a day. Now we're getting 82 deaths for a day in the last week. Excuse me, the week of June 11th to June 18th. We had a total of 579 people that died from COVID-19.
Wow.
That's only 82 people a day. In fact, the number of deaths, the deaths as a result of COVID-19 are so low that the Center for Disease Control now talks about COVID-19 as one of the normal, regular, cyclical
flu.
Like flu. It's one of those things that chicken pox, it's just going to happen to a number of people and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But very few people are going to die. They're not going to die because, A, not that many people get sick. B, of those people that do get sick, not that many get to the point where they get intubated, where they're putting pipes in the middle of your neck and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And the ability to treat people who do get sick, who contract the virus, the ability to treat the virus has become so strong that people don't die. They just get well, like they get well from a cold or get well from the flu and so on.
Right.
That means the vaccination program that is that your cousin in Florida, Ron DeSantis? Have you found out that y'all were related? See how Willie just backed out on that? He don't want to own Ron DeSantis anymore.
I was talking about Ron DeSantis yesterday to my cousin.
Yeah, I got cousins in Florida too, so we all got to bear some responsibility for this, right? Yeah. But Ron DeSantis tried to make his bones, ran for governor and won the governorship by talking about how he was fighting for America's freedom from being vaccinated. Well, the reason why we have so few people dying from COVID-19 is because 75% of the people in the United States have gotten at least one dose of the vaccination.
Yes, sir.
In addition to that, 75% of the people in the United States have actually gotten infected from COVID-19. Mm-hmm. The combination of that has built an immunity in our population that very few people are dying from COVID-19.
Right.
Now, Biden didn't come up with the vaccine. Trump put $12 billion of your money, not his money, but your money, he gave to the pharmaceutical companies to give them a carrot to go out there and do the work to develop a vaccine. That vaccine became available in December of 2020. But by that point, Donald Trump was bad-mouthing the vaccines. He was bad-mouthing the restrictions on people congregating with each other, and so on. So was, Ron DeSantis. So was Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott. All these, sort of Hopalong Cassidy Republicans and whatnot. They were all bad-mouthing vaccines and so on. But it's because of the vaccines, because the Biden administration was so relentless in pushing the vaccines, and because not only that, Biden also got behind changes that were made in our healthcare system so that you had access to healthcare.
Right.
Remember before, it took you 45 days to enroll in a program that would get you Medicare. That was like nothing. You just walked up to a medical facility and said, I'm sick, I need some help. And they enrolled you in the Medicare program. You didn't have to do it yourself.
Right.
There were all kinds of changes that were made. People that were not eligible for Medicare before became eligible for Medicaid under the Biden administration because so many people became able to access health care because they had the ability to pay for the access to health care. That meant that those people were getting treatment earlier and therefore were getting less sick and less were dying. That's all good news. Yeah. Where's the stories about that? I mean, 3 years, 3 years ago, we were like the Black Plague. You know what I mean? You remember we read in our history books, the Black Plague, and a third of the people in Europe died of the Black Plague. Well, we were looking like that was going to happen to us. It was really scary what was going on in this country at that time.
Well, when you share that story, though, everybody gets a little credit. Even Mr. Trump, Biden, and they all get credit because the vaccine went out. And
well, if you take the word credit, we'll only cut off the letter C and give that to Donald Trump. He don't get credit for anything else because he badmouthed everything else. So he don't get credit for something that he actually tried to stop.
Now, let me ask a question,
sure.
Mr. Hare. When Trump was in office, and before the pandemic really began, wasn't he very negative on the program of doing anything about it?
Well, he initially said that there was no infection at all.
Nothing at all.
There's only 15 people, and nobody died, and it'll be zero by next week.
Yeah.
I mean, he said all of that stuff, right?
So he had to implement something or do something after all these deaths. He had to do something to resurrect or to right that wrong, and that he said, because he could have did something a lot earlier. And the pandemic could have been at least weakened.
We could have done what we said on this program to do in February of 2020. As soon as we realized that something was wrong, something has leaked out into the American public that is insidious, that's going to cause us great harm.
Yeah.
Something called the coronavirus. They didn't call it COVID-19 then. They called it the coronavirus, right? Yeah. And once we realized that this was now actually happening, not when there was 8 million people a day getting it, when there was just 5 or 6 people getting it, but you knew that this was a communicable disease, we should have done everything in our power to identify where the disease appeared, try to quarantine those areas so that the disease didn't get out of those areas and get into other areas, and then keep doing testing and inspections everywhere around the country all the time. And every time you saw this virus break out, contain it.
Yes.
Okay. As soon as possible. If we had done that, we have had many fewer millions of people that would have gotten this disease in the first place. And instead of having 1.2 million Americans die from this thing, that may have been more like 100,000 to 200,000 Americans over the whole course of the disease would have died because of it.
Yeah.
That was just bad administration by Donald Trump.
Yes, sir.
But that's because Donald Trump is kind of slow. I mean, not only is he a sort of criminally oriented kind of person, but he's kind of slow. He doesn't read well. He's not dedicated to anything. He doesn't believe in anything. You can't trust him with something that requires principle because he's an unprincipled person. That's his nature. Well, that's just me. So when they badmouth someone, Satan Nate said it. I did say it. Okay.
Just want to, as far as the media goes, I don't even believe the media put too much of a negative spin on him anyway. After that,
they made it seem like he was somehow heroic. He was on the vanguard or something. My whole point in saying this is this was the worst disaster other than having the earth open up and become the great Rift Valley or something, in Africa. It was the worst thing that ever happened in this country for a long time.
Yeah.
And so given that, you would think that when this thing got repaired and we got to the other side of the pandemic and it's no longer a pandemic and there are clear things that were done to mitigate this pandemic, to bring it under control that we've identified here: vaccines, a testing regimen, masks, people not being too close to each other, changing practices at workplaces. All these things were done in a concerted, dedicated way, and they resulted in bringing the virus under control. And then the vaccines came and prevented the virus from getting into too many people, and treatments came so that people who did get the virus were able to overcome whatever the symptoms of the virus were. That's good news, and it should be attributed to somebody. Why isn't that attributed? Even if you give Trump credit for, the $12 billion, which I give him credit for, to fund the research to get a vaccine developed.
Right.
Why isn't there any news triumph kind of things? Do you remember in July of 2020 how horrible it was? We were having, 50, 60,000 people a day in July. In August, it was 90,000 people a day. In September, it was 120,000 people a day getting sick from this virus. Now we have maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people to get sick from the virus. We have maybe 80 people die a day, from this virus. Right. Life is a whole lot better now than it was then.
Yes, sir.
Thank God that, he worked through men and made, our salvation possible.
Yeah.
Why isn't that being talked about?
Because it's under the Biden
Exactly.
administration.
If this had been Donald Trump,
Yes,
you'd
sir.
been bombarded with this good news, over and over and over again, right? So that's my first point, right? And if I'm wrong, then say I'm wrong, okay? And tell me why. Unemployment. If I'm not mistaken, we had an unemployment rate of 6.2% when Donald Trump left office in January of 2021. A couple of weeks after he tried to overthrow the government of the United States, with his insurrection people. But we had a 6.2% unemployment rate. Unemployment is down to 3.5% now.
3.5?
3.5%.
It was 3.7. I mean,
Not only is unemployment down 3.5, it has been down. If you go back to July of 2022, it was down to 3.7% then.
Yeah.
Now, I for those of you that weren't paying attention historically, back when Richard Nixon was president, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72,
Yes, sir.
we had the wage price, what do they call it? The wage price freeze. I think that was in 1970 or 1971, was the wage price freeze. Nixon actually ordered wages to be frozen and prices to be frozen, for several months because we were in an inflationary spiral, at that point. That was the way he tried to tackle it. At that time, they said this is when unemployment was up around 6%, almost up to 7%. And at that time, they said that 4% unemployment was full employment, that you needed to have 4% of the people unemployed so that there'd be a break on wages. Because what happens with wages is if you don't have enough available employees to do the work that you need to have done, you have to raise your wages to attract more people to come and work for you,
That's
right?
absolutely correct.
But if you got a large pool of unemployed people, you can just go to the unemployed people and say, well, listen, they don't want to work for me anymore. I got room for you. And that keeps a break on the amount of raises that you can effect in the business market. So that's where we've been over the course of the past year, almost 15 months. We've been in a below 4% unemployment rate under the Biden administration.
Right. Like I said, Mr. Here, there's people in my community. I can only tell you my community. People are getting jobs. I know I'm getting a lot of overtime now, getting very little rest. No, but there is.
You hear that? You hear that?
I hear him.
Now, when he was unemployed, you didn't hear him running around here whining about he wasn't getting enough rest.
I was getting plenty of rest.
Now he's got 3 or 4 paychecks coming in every week, and he's telling me about he needs rest. Are you kidding me?
Not get much sleep these days.
Okay, the audience laughed at that one too. Okay. So my point here is that the unemployment crisis that we were facing, again, going back to the pandemic year 2020, there was a point that we were up over 12% in unemployment in this country. We had something like 25 or 23 million people lose their jobs in less than a 3-week period. In that period between, I think it was in late April through the middle of June of 2020, we had something like 23 million people lose their jobs over that time period.
Wow.
We were in a really difficult space. Well, according to this report, this was done by Natalie Campisi and Karen Weiner, writing for Forbes magazine. Forbes is not a liberal magazine. I think we know that. According to them, the government's latest report showed the jobless rate had dropped. Well, he says in this report, 3.6%, not 3.5. Big deal. The number of part-time workers had increased by 12%. Strong hiring trends in government, healthcare, social assistance, and construction seem to power the overall increase in employment by 209,000 people got jobs. New people got jobs in June of this year.
Yeah,
and that's a low month. Typically, you need 125,000 people, new people, or 125,000 new jobs a month to absorb all of the people that go into the workforce because they've aged into, the workforce. We're doubling that.
Wow.
Okay, so that means that there's a lot more demand for workers than there are workers to meet that demand.
Yeah, there's a demand.
Mr. Hare, what does that do for our economy?
It means that you have a lot of people that have paychecks. The more people, wage earners tend to be consumers.
Yeah.
So the more people that have paychecks, the more consumption is going to be demanded by those people with those paychecks.
Right.
They're going to buy more gas. They're going to buy more socks. They're going to buy more purses. They're going to buy more jewelry, whatever it is that people do, with their consumer purchases.
Okay. With that, though, let me just ask, all of these purchasing and buying and this and that gives business the opportunity to raise prices.
If you're let's look at it in different ways. That's a good point. So what happens is if you have more demand because people have more money turns into demand. Money doesn't want to go in the savings bank and just sit there. Money wants to get spent on something or get invested in something. So that creates demand. That demand then creates a demand for goods and services to be produced by businesses. If they have to produce more goods and services to meet the demand, they have to hire more people to do that, which means you create more workers. If you create more workers, you create more wage income, and the spiral of increasing demand goes up and up. Now, your cousin, I know I keep giving y'all cousins and whatnot, but y'all not owning them as quickly as you used to. Jerome Powell, I know you met him. He's your cousin, the head of the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell has been trying to increase interest rates at a rapid rate as a way to tamp down demand, because that would anything that was financed with interest payments like credit cards, buying stuff on installment and so on. The more your interest rates are, the more it's going to cost you month to month to be able to buy those things. So if you raise interest rates, you tend to lower demand. That's what we see going on in the country right now. But my core point is that we have this tremendous job market right now where there's room for people to move to other jobs. If they don't like what's happening at the job that they're working at, there's alternatives to go to. When the job market was much smaller, you were stuck at whatever job you had. There was no place else to go. You just had to live with whatever you got from that employer.
It's
But I think, do we have a caller hanging on?
Yeah, we do have a call.
Yeah, let me get that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how you doing?
Are you? Fine. I'm Norman's brother calling again.
Ah, okay.
What's up, bro?
All right. I just want to, I don't know, I caught most of your beginning, what you were talking about in the beginning, but I don't know if you ever, if you discussed Obama and the problem they had with Ebola. And when they had, after they took care, they did a good job with Ebola. And before he left office, I don't know if you discussed the fact that he left a whole plan to deal with pandemic, because the people in the administration found that there was a high probability of maybe some type of thing like this pandemic. It might be a chance of that coming about. So they left the whole plan, a whole book and work.
Right. They called it the office of they called it the Office of Pandemic Administration.
Right.
That was what Obama did in response to Ebola. Now, one of the things that people don't talk about, they were saying that Ebola was going to take over the whole world. Everybody's going to wind up like the Black Plague with Ebola and so on. Obama sent soldiers to Africa. He sent soldiers to the Congo. He sent soldiers to Congo Brazzaville and had them go, not to attack people, but they went and took control of areas where the Ebola virus was spreading and contained it so that people stayed in those areas, and then brought doctors in, also paid for by the Army, and they got medicine into the arms of those people, got treatment into those people, got food to those people, got clean environments for those people to get well in, and the virus died out in that area. We had 2 people in this country die from Ebola.
2
for the whole world pandemic about it.
Yes, sir.
We only had 2 people in the United States die from Ebola. Obama got virtually no credit for that. They acted like that happened by itself.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
But that's exactly what your brother is talking about, is exactly what I'm talking about. How is it that you have these hugely positive things that are being done in this society, and there's almost no celebration of it, but anything that is remotely negative, it's world news, every day. You can't turn the lights out, and so on. Why is that? And why aren't we talking about that? It just seems to me that we should be recognizing what's going on, that this is clearly a plan, that people are doing this on purpose, and that the people who govern our media, they're the same people that are benefiting from this capital exploitation that goes on in this country. So what, you got any other thoughts there? I appreciate your comments.
No, I just want to highlight the difference in one administration to another, and the fact that Obama didn't get the credit he deserved, and he set up a plan where Trump could have just a whole lot of people would have been saved if they'd have listened to him. But of course, he threw away everything that all the positive things that Obama wanted to do. He threw them out the window as soon as he got in.
Yep. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your comments. You're right on time.
All right, bro. All right.
Okay, guys.
Take care, sir.
They got the music, which says, when the music begins to play, never mind. That's another one of them old songs y'all don't know about.
Music play, yeah.
So, but listen, we got to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. Don't go away. We'll see you on the side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
Bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norm MacArthur, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And we're also here with Willie H., who is our IT person, our engineer. He's the scientist. He's the one that knows how to make this IT world work. Welcome back, Willie.
I don't know if I'm a scientist, Mr. Hare. I know how to stream live and work on a computer
He's
and
a bad
audio
man.
board.
Listen,
Scientists, I don't know about that.
I've been reading the General History of Africa that was written by the United Nations Education, Science, and Culture Organization. And all they talk about are these scientists, 350 scientists that they hired to do the work to build to get this
Nice.
curriculum. And so I'm like scientist soap now. I mean, I'm saturated in scientists.
Nice.
But anyway, going back to our discussion, the recent disinflation trends that we have experienced over the course of the past several months makes it clear that the inflation that we saw going on in 2021 and 2022 heading into this year was mainly the result of supply chain shocks and other transient labor market factors related to the pandemic. And the strong recovery under the Biden administration continues to march on. It's hard to think of another economist who makes so many errors and keeps being treated by the media as if he was the font of wisdom is Larry Summers, who kept telling us that, you know, things were just horrible, the sky is falling and whatnot, told us that, you know, the inflation, not the Inflation Reduction Act, the Climate Pact, you know, that Biden got passed in 2022. He said that was inflationary. That's the reason why we have all the inflation that we see in the country. Well, that couldn't be true because those projects hadn't gotten started yet. They got authorized. Just because something got authorized doesn't mean the money got spent. They didn't spend that money yet. So that wasn't the cause of the inflation. What was the cause of the inflation? Things we've already talked about. We're not going to go through all of those, you know, right now. The point is that the recovery is strong. The things that the Biden administration did policy-wise have been working, and we've actually gotten to a place where we have 3 million more jobs that are available in the economy right now than were available in 2019, the year before the pandemic. So we're not only back where we were before the pandemic, we're ahead of where we were. Because
Wonderful.
Isn't that good news?
That's great news.
That's great news.
Great news.
Let me ask you this question, Mr. Hare. In the history of our country, has there ever been another president or another leader or anybody that was looked at negatively after so many positive things being accomplished?
Well, I can't say in my lifetime. I mean, I've been visiting with this idea of the president since John Kennedy in 1960. I've never seen this, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like he gets, as you say, all of the positive things that you've been bringing up that we never hear about and the media doesn't discuss and won't discuss due to it seems like they just are really, really I mean, I don't understand why
it seems to me that the media believes that there is this population of people that are sort of devoted right-wing listeners. You know, these are the people that they may not be Ku Klux Klan hat wearers, but they hang around with people that wear Ku Klux Klan hats. You know, it's that cut of the American society. And it seems to me that the media believes there's a huge chunk of those people, and that population of people tend to be very loyal listeners to specific radio stations or news media or social media. They tend to be very loyal to those sources. So they're going to go to Breitbart, or they're going to go to Stormfront, or whatever, and they're going to get their news from those sources. So they feel it seems to me that they feel they have to please that population of people. And if they start talking about real positive stuff, that the Democrats are doing or that Biden is doing, they seem to think that would lose them their audience. If they say, negative stuff or half-baked stuff that's positive about Biden, then they don't lose that audience. I think that's the market model that is underway.
I can see that, but the people that are listening to these different news broadcasts are seriously uninformed, and I mean they're not seeing or realizing any of the positivity of what.
I want to help you just a little bit more on that. They're not just uninformed; they are biased against information.
Totally biased.
They don't want information.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it.
All they want to hear is everything that supports what they already believe.
Yes, sir.
Anything
I got you.
you say that does not line up with what they already believe, they just dismiss it.
It's rejected. Yeah.
Right? So you have 61 different courts in this country between November 3rd of 2020 and January 5th of 2021. You had 61 different courts in this country review the election outcomes in the various states. And every single one of them said there was nothing wrong with this election. Nothing. 61 different courts were sued by the Trump administration. And every single one of them said, there's nothing here.
Wow.
None of what you all are saying turns out to be true. You wasted our time. In fact, they should have charged them $4 or $5 million each for wasting everybody's time, on those lawsuits.
Well, can I be the devil advocate for your
Only if you're willing to make Ron DeSantis your cousin.
He's not my cousin. Matter of fact, I'm interviewing somebody that's in the Florida state that might be related to him, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, there's a consistency. Not only the conservative news, but the media overall is giving an impression that there's somebody after Trump. And so when I listen to a lot of young people, especially black young men, they seem to think that Biden is this bad guy and Trump is this guy that, this rich guy that's not, that does things contrary to the system, and that they after him, and that, and that every organization is out to get Trump.
Right.
That's the consensus.
And that's Trump's line. Trump has fed that line exactly that way out to his public, and his public has taken it up. The issue here is that I'm trying to get people to get a hold of is that information, actual facts, you can't get them into the heads of people that do not want to hear facts. They only want to hear what supports what they already believe.
Right.
And nothing else.
Right.
So if you thought that, I think something was dirty with those elections, how in the world could Michigan go to Biden? We had Michigan. It was a Republican, state. So then what you would do is you would say, well, let me go test this. Let me go find out were things correctly done in Michigan. Now you go to the people in Michigan and see what they did to test the election results, and you find there were recounts in Michigan, there were recounts in Arizona, recounts in Georgia, recounts in Pennsylvania, and all of the recounts came back the same way, that the results that were announced on November 3rd of 2020 were the results. They didn't change. Those are facts. But the people that you're talking about, these conservative people you're talking about, those people will not hear those facts. You can put those facts in front of them.
Yeah.
They just won't listen to you. They dismiss it.
Yeah.
They say, well, I think you're lying. You're just making up those facts.
Right.
So no matter what you say, when you tell people that if you get vaccinated, the odds your odds of getting COVID-19 drop by like 90%, maybe more than that, if you get vaccinated. And then if you get vaccinated and you still get sick, the odds that you're going to actually end up in the hospital are going to be like 95% less. And if you go to the hospital, the odds are going to be 95% less that you're going to die. Mm-hmm. How do we know that? Because originally we were having 6 or 7% of the people that contracted the coronavirus were dying of the virus. Not just getting sick, they were dying from the virus, right? Now you have 80 people a day, dying from the virus out of 330 plus million people in the United States. We're in a completely different space now than we were. There are fewer people dying from COVID-19 than die from the flu every year by a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mister, this is it's just something I'm kind of wondering about. 2024 election. It almost seems as if Trump has kind of created a culture where he will try to put a hold or a stop on the different, just like you say, the elections and slow them down and make us have to do recounts. The way he did it this past election, even though he was wrong, but it's like we didn't put a stop on that, so it almost seems like he can do the same thing again. What is going to be done against that same thing that happened last election?
Well, you always can ask for a recount under certain circumstances. Every state has their own rules. So if a election is won by less than 0.5% of the vote in that election, you can ask for a recount, and the state will pay for the recount. If the margin is smaller than that, you could ask for a recount, but they don't have to give it to you. You could pay for a recount yourself.
Was that the situation in all of these states? That
yes,
every single
right,
one
in every one of those states.
Okay.
Now, and in Georgia, for example, they had 5 different kinds of recounts. They had hand counts, they had machine counts. They said, well, they actually took in Georgia. I don't know if you are familiar with this. They actually took the voting machines in Fulton County, and the Republicans convinced the Board of Elections in the state of Georgia to allow these people to take the voting machines in Fulton County, which has Atlanta, a largely black county.
Yeah,
and do what they call a forensic, examination of the machines. You don't know what they did to those machines, once they had them in their hands. That should not have been done. That should have been illegal. But all those things to the core I'm trying to get to is that there's a bias in the minds of a set of people in this country that no matter what you say to them, they just will not accept it. They will just respond by saying, I don't believe you. So if I test something and I get results that say that this thing is red, and you come here and you look at this thing and you say, no, it's blue. I say, no, it's red. Here's the test. This proves that it's red. And you look at the test, look at the red and say, nope, it's blue. And you say, well, why are you saying that? I say, because I don't believe you. But how can you not believe me when I'm showing you what the test? I don't believe you. I don't believe the test. I don't believe anything you say. I believe that Donald Trump is an angel. He's the warrior assigned by heaven to save the United States. People believe this sort of stuff, right?
People believe this type of stuff. They really do.
So my point is that the economy is as good as the economy can get, really. Mm-hmm. Real wages have risen so that to the point where the increase in wages is actually higher than the increase in inflation. So you're actually getting some traction now. Your money is worth more. You can buy more with the same money. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
The inflation rate measured by the Consumer Price Index actually only rose by 1.2% between May and June of this year. Inflation averaged just 4% over the course of the past year, and it's been steadily declining. The main weakness in the economy is the result of problems of failed regional banks, but banks fail every year. You know, that's not, it's not like we had a whole lot of them fail. You had 3 fail in the last 9 months. Okay, I mean, it's not a great thing, but it's not that big of a deal. Let me go to something else in terms of just understanding what is good is happening here and how it's being treated. Trade deficits. We've had many media reports, you know, lambasting trade deficits, terrible, terrible, horrible. You know, we're giving away more money than we're getting back, you know, from people buying stuff from us. We're buying more from other people than they're buying from us. That creates this trade deficit, right? According to an article written by Lucia Mutikani, this was in Reuters news service, the trade deficit shrinks sharply as imports tumble. The trade deficit contracted by more than, the most it has ever contracted in 14 years in November of 2022. The trade deficit decreased 21% to $61.5 billion, which was the lowest since September of 2020, the last year of the Trump administration. Imports tumbled by 6.4%. Even exports dropped, but the imports dropped much higher than the exports dropped. So we had a net of bigger sales being made to people outside of the country than were purchases that came inside the country.
So we're buying more from American-made products here,
right?
And we're not outsourcing.
And we're buying less of other people's stuff. Right.
Their stuff.
And I'm not mad at other people. I just want to be able to employ American people to produce goods and services in America.
Right.
And if you don't have a job in, you know, whatever country you're in, talk to me. We'll see if we can help you work out a program. But you're not taking my jobs.
Yeah. And just like all the outsourcing that we had been doing, that's been slowed down under the Biden administration.
And this is what I mean about the media not giving people context for truth. The reality is that the reason why we were having a problem with jobs 5, 6, 7 years ago is because over the past 25 years, you've been outsourcing all of these production jobs to other countries that were low wage paying countries.
Yeah.
Claiming that you're going to be able to get goods and services come back to the United States at a lower price point. But they didn't really come back here at a lower price point. They kept the same price, but the companies that were making those goods were paying less to make the goods.
Yeah,
and the goods were not being made as well as American workers were making those goods. So, you know, it created this complexity. It's the same situation with the federal budget. You give away $400 and some billion a year in tax cuts, and then complain that, you know, our budgets are out of balance, and it's because the Democrats are spending too much money. How come it's not you're giving away money with these tax cuts? Why isn't that the issue? If you wanted to do something, rescind those tax cuts, and you put $400 billion back on the table for the American government. That would give you a $4 trillion increase in revenue over a 10-year period, and would knock down much of your debt. But why would we talk about that? Why does the media not talk about that? Right? You don't have to be a economist to figure that out.
Definitely not.
You can just add and subtract and multiply and divide.
Yes, sir.
You know, arithmetic can figure that out for you. So on this trade deficits in March of 2022, not too long ago, just 15 months ago, we had a trade deficit of $102 billion in that month. In June of this year, our trade deficit was only $68.9 billion. Our trade deficit went down by $45 billion.
Man, that's nice.
Where's the news story about that? Why isn't that the news? Why isn't that the headline? Why didn't we get, you know, I don't want to blame anybody. Let me I won't go. I was about to go blame some people. But
let me ask a quick question, Mr. Are there media sources out there that I don't want to be like the Republicans, but that lean democratically and give Biden credit.
They claim that MSNBC leans democratically, and it does. But even MSNBC fails to do what I'm talking about right now. You know, they'll do the stuff on, this girl, it was terrible that she disappeared for 2 days, and then it turns out that it was a hoax, and they did a whole lot of stuff, on that. But we have 100,000 African women in the course of the last 20 years that have gone missing.
Wow.
Where's the story about that? 100,000.
No story.
Where's the story about that?
But let it be a little white girl.
If she was missing for 14 seconds,
man,
okay, they'd be pulling buildings down, tearing up the sidewalks. There'd be earthquakes trying to find where that child was. Right. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be trying to do everything they could to find that child.
Right.
I'm just saying you should be doing the same thing for those black children.
It's a crazy difference.
Right.
A crazy difference.
So that's the reality.
Yeah.
Oil imports. Big deal, oil imports and whatnot, right? The Republicans keep saying that we're dependent on foreign oil. It's Biden's fault, that we're dependent on foreign oil. This is an article written by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, by the government itself. This report was written in April of 2021. Says that decreases in crude oil and natural gas imports largely drove the last change in U.S. energy trade. U.S. crude oil imports fell to 5.9 billion barrels per day, the lowest level since 1991. Gross exports of natural gas have increased every year since 2014. Gross imports of natural gas fell to 7 billion feet per day, the lowest level since 1993. The core point is that the United States is exporting more energy than it imports by a lot. We export 3 billion barrels of oil a day to other countries. We used to import 14 million barrels of oil a day. But because of the energy independence created by fracking, by wind power, by solar power, by geothermal power, because of the energy that's been created from those sources, the United States has actually made itself energy independent and now an exporter of energy rather than an importer of energy.
So now we're salesmen, which makes our nation, it brings money into our economy.
As long as you're the one that's selling, as opposed to the person who's buying, you're in control of your reality.
You set the price,
right? You set your goal, for selling,
right?
But if you're only on the buying end, right, then somebody else is setting the target for what you got to pay.
Let me ask a question. This was said. I heard about this, that we have so many, and I'm just oil deposits and different things under us,
right,
that we have control of, and we didn't use those, so we were able to kind of stock up. Was that a good thing back then to buy oil from other nations and utilize that?
It wasn't so much. It was a good thing in the sense that you needed the oil in order to run your industries. So the fact that the oil was available to buy was a good thing. But the better thing is for you to have the ability to produce the energy that you need from your own domestic sources.
Okay.
Because that means that if other countries get mad at you, it's not going to affect you. If Russia doesn't like me, but I'm not buying any oil from Russia, then Russia just don't like me.
That's right.
And there's no consequence to it, right? That's the way you have to look at this thing. It was incredibly important for the United States to become energy independent. The reason why we weren't energy independent is because the oil companies are not really American oil companies. They were created in America. They got their business licenses, in America. They're on the American stock exchanges and so on, but they're not really American companies. They're really international companies, and their loyalty has nothing to do with America. Their loyalty has to do only to their stockholders in those international companies. And that's the position that we've got to figure out a way to get out of again. That's something that the American businesses wanted that to occur because they wanted to be free, of being bound by America itself. They just want to have international rules that they could count on, international finance, regulations and laws that they could count on. And once they had that, they had what they wanted. Now they could keep playing with us, playing chess with us as if we're pieces on a board of a chess game. The American public has to get itself free from that. And the way you get free from it is you got to vote for different people. You can't vote for criminals and expect them not to commit crimes. That's the reason why we're in the situation that we're in, because we hired crooks. You telling me that you didn't know Donald Trump was a crook? Give me a break. His father was a crook. He's a crook. Okay. Let me. This is a polite program.
I got you, Mr.
I know we have students listening and whatnot.
Got to cool down, sir.
Let's be polite. Student loans from our students in the audience. I know that you all were mad because the court struck down Biden's student loan program that was going to give $400 billion worth of loan relief to students who had borrowed money to pay for college. I know you all felt upset about that. You should have. But what you don't seem to be encouraged about is that Biden immediately put together a workaround. Not him, but his education department put together a workaround. Now they have what they call a means-tested loan program called SAVE, which is savings. Saving on a valuable education. It's a strange acronym. Thanks. I know we have 3 minutes left. Saving on a valuable education is what they call it, the SAVE program. If you enroll in the SAVE program, you can get your loan payments cut virtually in half. And if you make your payments over a 10-year period, they will wipe out whatever balance of your loan has not been paid off over that time period. They will just forgive the balance of that loan.
Wow.
So you're only on the hook after you finish college and start working. You're only on the hook, like, that little bait on the hook. You're only on the hook for 10 years.
That's really big, Mr.
That's really big, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it can be as much as $300 billion over a 10-year period that's going to be spent on this program. Where are the students, celebrating this? Why aren't we having, television programs and Rachel Maddow and these people interviewing students saying, well, it's not what we wanted, but it's a whole lot better than what we got right now. Thank you, Joe Biden, for getting this done and getting it done right away. Where is that conversation, on the media right now? There's so much more that I wanted to be able to get to, but that I just overtalk stuff. Can I just hit you with a quick summary or something? These are just highlights of what Biden's done in his administration. The economy added 13.2 million jobs since Biden became president. The unemployment rate we talked about dropped back to 3.6%. Inflation has been brought down to 3% when it was up a little bit over 9%. Gasoline prices are now lower than they were a year ago by significantly. Weekly earnings are actually above the rate of inflation. Weekly earnings went up by 11.3%. Inflation went up by 3.6%. That's a pretty good deal for American people.
Yes, sir.
The economy grew by 2.1%, but we've seen the revision on that. It actually grew by 2.9%. It's on track to go by 4% in the last quarter of this year. That's the quarter that ends September 30th of this year. The population without health insurance dropped by 1.6%. The number of people receiving food assistance increased by 1.2%. Despite a decline in 2022, the number of murders in the 70 largest cities in the country has gone up by only 1.6%, and it has begun to decline the last 5 months of this year. And of course, the stock market is now back over 35,000. It's actually higher than it was before the pandemic took place. That's a lot of good news.
Man, that's great news.
Where have you heard that news? Okay.
We heard it on Mr. Hare's show.
We got to get a broader audience. We got to get this out here. Thank you all. I know that music means that I'm in somebody else's time. So thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We'll see you all then.